Thank you for auditing Professor Skye's Record Review, the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who doesn't mean to have a schedule to this show. It just kind of happens that way, where I do 3 episodes a week, Tuesday, Thursday, and then a weekend episode. And in general, the weekend episode, it gets the most views, it gets the most clicks, that's where I've kind of exploded. And so the most intelligent thing for me to do as a content creator is to focus on the biggest releases with the most visibility on the weekends. So I tend to do that, but I don't always. And this week I'm not doing that. I don't care. I don't care what else came out this week. I just don't. I am that excited about The Liz by Armani Caesar. This is the biggest release to me. You see, last week I reviewed the album by Conway the Machine, From King to a God. You can check the link out up there. I think it's one of my better reviews. And I talked about how excited I am whenever anybody from the Buffalo rap collective Griselda releases an album. And that whenever they do, it's like our duty as music fans, as hip-hop fans, to go out and listen to it as quickly as possible, to get into it as quickly as possible, until they do something whack. And they will. Eventually, Griselda will do something whack. I don't know when it is, and it isn't yet, because this release by by Armani Caesar is excellent. Part of this is because I live in Rochester, New York, and Buffalo is the closest big city, so it's not that their successes are our successes, but it's the closest thing I'll have to a town with a sports team, or the closest thing to a town with a vibrant rap community. It is kind of, right now, the city of champions. I'm just going to put that out there. That's how good Griselda is, that they are putting the entire city on this map. And not just like the hip-hop map, but I would say like the artistry map, like the history map. I think when we look back at this time in music, this is going to have its own entry in the dictionary, so to speak. But let's talk a little bit about this, because this is different. This is not one of the core members of Griselda. This is Armani Caesar, who is I think she was maybe signed last year or the year before, a pre-existing rapper and a female rapper. And that changes things up quite a bit in terms of the way that she's perceived and the way that she is promoted. And that's going to change the way that she's reviewed as well, because I want to take this opportunity to talk a little bit about female rappers and their position in hip-hop and the way that the traps that I find artistically they can tend to fall in, that for the most part Armani Caesar has avoided. First of all, I just want to talk about the cover and the title. One thing I love about Griselda, and I think they took this a little bit from the Wu-Tang as well, that someone doesn't have to look like you or be of your same race or nationality to adopt their personality and take it on your own as an avatar. Griselda itself is 3 black guys from Buffalo who named themselves after a female drug kingpin from Colombia. And in this case, Armani Caesar appears to be a 3-eyed Liz Taylor. That's an interesting figure, Liz Taylor, because she is a good artist on her own. She's a spectacular actress. But at the same time, she's kind of famous for her personal trauma, personal turmoil, her many marriages, and most of all, for just being very flashy and rich and having diamonds. So it all kind of works quite well with the Liz, although she barely talks about her at all. One thing I will say is that I do 5 minutes of research before every video that I do, and there is astoundingly little written about Armani Caesar on the internet. She doesn't have a wiki page. I've watched some interviews with her, but they're so bad. I watched this one interview with this guy who spent 5 minutes asking her, "Do people say you look like Nicki Minaj?" They do. How do you feel? If there's a Nicki Minaj movie, would you be in that movie? And underlines just and her answers were great. Her answers were great for somebody who is conscious of the fact that she hasn't arrived yet. Because what she should have said is F you, taking the mic, throwing it on the ground and say, "I don't need this," and leave. But she didn't. Instead, she's like, "I respect Nicki Minaj. Nicki Minaj is attractive. Sometimes I'm compared to her." But then she said, "Why can't I look like myself? Why can't I just be a black female rapper and just be myself? And no matter what I look like or what I sound like, it doesn't have to be constantly comparing me to other people." And I realized this is kind of the problem of underrepresentation. It's a weird paradox of underrepresentation. If something is underrepresented, then if there's two of that thing, it's just inevitable that you compare them. You know, it's maybe part of the reason why, you know, like when I was in Japan, people legitimately thought I was Brad Pitt. And it's not because I look like Brad Pitt, but because in their life, people who look like me, like, are fairly underrepresented, just kind of walking around on the streets. So like, they sort of see, like, okay, kind of light skin, sort of light hair. I think that's Brad Pitt, right? I'm not joking, by the way. This actually happened. It sounds like I'm being arrogant. Maybe I should release an album, The Pit. I'm not gonna do it. But the thing is that because I was underrepresented in their thoughts, like in their real life, that was how they connected me. And so I think that's what happens to female rappers. And that's what I'm going to try to avoid doing now. I'm going to try to avoid just comparing her to everyone else who came before. Because if there was only, I don't know, 15 well-known male rappers, I think we'd do the same. I mean, I think we'd ask Benny the Butcher if, are you intentionally trying to sound like Freddie Gibbs? And like, they don't sound very similar. But I think if there was only like 10 or 15 active male rappers, we would find the comparisons between them and we'd force them. And when it comes to underrepresentation, I mean, it is pretty astounding. And it's something that I've always been conscious of as a hip hop fan and as a very active feminist, I remember when the Lauryn Hill album came out, I got it the day it came out, I was like, this is the greatest thing ever, and then it got a little bit overplayed, and I remember like wanting to like Queen Latifah, but not really liking it, wanting to like MC Lyte, but not really liking it, but then I realized that there is this sort of lane that a lot of female rappers can hit, and this is the one that Armani Caesar hit previously, which is just a part of a crew. Very underrated crew from the 90s was Busta Rhymes' crew, the Flip Mode Squad, which really has like 2 or 3 rappers in there who should have been a much bigger success. It was a really good group. And one of them was the female of the group named Rah Digga, who's very strong, very aggressive, very interesting. Similar, I think, in that aggression and that sort of unapologetic aggression to Eve from Rough Riders, who actually had a few hits. But like being able to like be a part of a crew, I think, I don't know, maybe take some pressure off. So then when I saw that Armani Caesar was doing this solo album, I was like, okay, what's this going to be? Can she extend it out? Because I've liked her features. Can she extend it out over a full EP? And actually, I think she's better here. She's better as a solo artist. I think she really is. I think when she makes an appearance, it's too much of just like, we need something to make this song sound different. Put that voice in there. Whew. Production achieved. Whereas here, she really just gets a chance to just be herself. And it really is better. Sometimes, at its worst, those kinds of features feel like a kind of tokenism. And this album doesn't feel like that. This is just a very solid, strong album through and through. Thematically is what I was most afraid of. There are just some tropes that a lot of female rappers go into, which are fine, but when they become predictable, it's like, but you know what though? This is just my internal misogyny. Not internal, external. Because if rappers rap about the same 5 things, right? The rappers of Griselda rap about basically the same 5 things over and over again. Why would we have to hold up female rappers to a different standard? Why should they have to rap about 10 different things? I don't know. These are the questions that I ask myself when listening to this music. I will say that it strikes a nice balance because it's never intentionally girl power, and it's also never like putting down other female rappers just because they're competition, which sometimes happens. There is a lot of reference about physical beauty, which I'm okay with, but there's no like particular body parts. I think maybe going back to Lil' Kim, like that was just like a thing, like we actually talk about what your actual dimensions are constantly, and that isn't there. And the number one thing that I dislike about female rappers, especially gangster rappers of the modern era, is sex for money. And we're going to talk about that later. By that I mean, I use sex and men give me money. I feel that's beneath artists to talk that way, right? I mean, it's beneath an artist. Right? If you're Armani Caesar and you're a great artist, that's beneath you. You should be able to make the money yourself, so why give into this trope? And with the exception of one song, she does avoid it. Just looking over my notes here. The whole time I was listening, I was trying to think like, like, she's not a spectacular lyricist, and her flow is not spectacular, but together it's very solid. And with the production, with the amazing Griselda production, and it was all by people who, you know, I didn't recognize the names of the producers, but it's just a very, it is on par with the rest of the Griselda EPs, you know, like Lulu or Fly God or whatever. Like, it's a perfect, like, chunk of music with solid lyricism, solid flow, even good variation to the flow. It's not just one flow all the way through. And I think on the second listening, I came to appreciate her lyricism more. Now, interestingly, going back to the scene that I had talking about my difficulty about female rappers rapping about being subservient to men proudly, which is a weird thing. It begins with the intro to the movie. The intro is from the movie CB4. Now, if you haven't seen CB4, you have to see it. It is, okay, it's not as funny as Spinal Tap, but it's up there. It is an amazingly well done movie. It's most famous for being, you know, starring Chris Rock and having Chris Rock write it. Fine, I don't care about Chris Rock. CB4 is Nelson George's masterpiece. And if you don't know Nelson George, that's fine. He is like the best hip hop scholar that there has ever been, and I think can ever be, because he was actually hanging around at Def Jam Records, like with Run DMC in the 80s, while also observing it and commenting on it, and making CB4 a great satire of hip hop, class, race, the record industry, everything. It is a goddamn masterpiece, and it's hilarious. And if you have seen the movie, I'm going to tell you another true fact about Professor Payne. When I was a junior in high school, I went trick-or-treating, which is lame. I went as the Bagheads from CB4 with two of my friends. If you're a CB4 fan, you please put in the comments that you give me props for being 17 years old and going as the Bagheads from CB4. But in this case, on this album, it starts off with this intro where it's talking about, you know, these women bragging about being in videos and being video hoes, which is the term that's used. And then she sort of says, you know, don't do that. You know, you have to take pictures of them and then blackmail them, and that's how you become empowered. And the message isn't really about blackmailing, but it's really sort of about, like, it's a small nod in a sort of oblique, postmodern, intertextual way to her desire to sort of be independent and not just dependent on other rappers. But then the album gets started with Countdown, which is just an awesome song. Just great. This album's like 24 minutes. It's totally worth a listen. Like a lot of great Griselda tracks, it's based on a piano sample, a crackling piano sample. She inverts some old misogynist rap terms, you know, by saying N-words ain't nothing but hoes and tricks, you know, redoing the Snoop line. I hope that's Snoop. If not, you can comment and tell me I'm wrong. After the first chorus, it's cool because she actually mixes up her style a little bit in the second verse, and the chorus itself is either Redman or someone sounding like Redman saying, "This is the countdown," and it has a really great, like, energetic feeling, and it gets you pumped up. Then the track Mac 10s for Everybody is the first guest appearance by a member of Griselda proper. A really more piano beat, super atmospheric. There's like rain in the background. It's really nice. I'm not gonna say it reminds me of Quiet Storm by Mobb Deep, but it does. Like, I wouldn't say it's similar, but just having a rainy feeling works really nicely there. And then West Side Gun provides the hook. Now, I've done a lot of videos about West Side Gun because he releases a lot of music, but he's way better as a feature. Like, he's better as somebody who just, like, does the chorus and is used sparingly, at least for me, than listening to a whole album of his kind of grating but impressive style. So he just, like, comes on here, Mac 10s, everybody, like all that. And it's really nice having it located in small, and just a small appearance. So it's kind of an inversion. Like, on a West Side Gun or usual Griselda track, they're front and center, and then they bring in Armani for a feature. Here, having them as a feature, it actually works quite well. It's nice. The next track, Gucci Casket. Oh no, the next track is The Liz, the self-titled track, which is in the running for Rap Song of the Year. I love this song. My only problem with it is that it's not quite a song. It doesn't really develop. It's just like one thing. I think maybe if they developed like a second part or a chorus or something, it'd be up there. But the beat is by someone named Camouflage Monk, who I don't know about, but he is... It's hard when artists establish a style and get it going, and you're like, and you know what it's like, and then you say, okay, so just do the same thing, right? Like, same thing happened to Wu-Tang, you know, where you'd have like, I'm the fourth disciple, and I'm the this guy, and I'm that guy. Just sound like RZA, okay? All right, no, just sound like RZA. Oh, okay, you know, like that doesn't allow a lot of freedom. So it takes a real discerning ear to pay a lot of attention to people who are working within a style. In this case, it's Derringer's style from Griselda, which is imitating RZA's style in a long way, and like find the things that are actually better and do things better. And this track has this really dreamy xylophone sound, almost like Mr. Rogers, but then the bass just drones underneath with this perfectly chosen, really tight drum set. And on top of that, it's her best rhyming and flow on the whole album, because she's laid back. That's the thing, is that, and she does this quite well. Often I think women in gangster rap songs, like they always have to try to be so hard and so, you know, think like Lil' Kim or Foxy Brown, just kind of like super aggressive in order to project strength. But I think she projects more strength on this track by not trying to project strength, by being back. This is just great. This is just an amazing track. So I'm gonna play you 14 seconds of it. You really have to have this on headphones though, to hear this droning bass and these tight drums and the way it interacts with the flow. It's just great. The Liz by Armani Caesar.
No gun, come with a drum, but no band. I get in the booth, no turkey, I go ham. Shout out to the bitches who hate me but still dance. Get it how you live, keep fucking that old man. Frontin' ass niggas.
Okay, I could just listen to the whole track right now. It is excellent. I really, if you like hip hop music, just give yourself a treat and listen to that. The next track is called Gucci Casket, and that's with Conway, my favorite, it turns out, of the Griselda trio. Again, more tinkling pianos, maybe a bit too much, maybe the pianos are a bit much on here. But this is funny because, you know, she's bragging about spending money on lingerie, and I guess I've never heard that. Agent provocateur, that's 1,000 on the kitten. That's kind of funny. I don't know. Like, how do I feel about bragging about buying expensive lingerie versus buying expensive watches? Probably better. I mean, at least lingerie serves a purpose. You already have a phone. Some interesting rhyming here too. Like, the problem is that like I'm constantly like listening and trying to like decode everything when I hear it, and that's a problem I think that a lot of people have listening to female rappers, especially if you're like me and you probably consider yourself a feminist and all that stuff. So it's like it's hard just to listen to her as an artist, which is unfair to her and part of the problem. But in this, like, she has a lot of great rhymes, like kind of around the theme of impotence, and she does it really well. And you'd have to, I'm not going to read out the lyrics, but she does it really well, and she does it in an interesting way that I think like shows the ability, like a higher ability to talk about sexual themes as a female rapper and male sexual themes and things that might appeal to a male audience in a way that's on a slightly higher level. I'm not expressing myself well on that, but I'm gonna keep going anyway. Conway comes back again, and he's just awesome. It's just great. Like I spent all week listening to his new album last week, and then he has another verse, and I'm like, ooh, Conway's back. Speaking of watches, he has a nice line here: "Rollie on my left hand wrist, based on what my other hand write." That's kind of cool. The next track, Drill a Rama, is part of the two-part with Benny the Butcher, the third member of Griselda. Cool kind of backwards beat. This has sort of a Bonnie and Clyde feel to it. You know, the old Jay-Z song where it's kind of like the male and the female voices are interrupted. And this is my problem with the album, is in this one song. This is the one time that I heard on the album where Benny the Butcher talks about how, you know, oh, if you're very good at oral sex, then I will take you to the jeweler. And she says, you know, I'll let you use your American Express card. And this is the problem. I said I was going to get into it. I'm going to get into it. It's the WAP problem, right? The song Megan Thee Stallion and Nicki Minaj did, wet ass P words. I was going to do a whole video about this song, and now I don't have to, because I can talk about something more interesting, Armani Caesar. But on the one hand, I love WAP, right? I love it. I mean, it's a good beat, it's well done, but I love the theme of it. I love that it's female sexuality put out, and just like deal with female sexuality, man. Deal with it. Hear it, making you uncomfortable? Deal with it. You're a little bit more uncomfortable? Oh, you don't know if we think like that? Deal with it, okay? I like that about WAP, about WAP. And if that was all the song was, I would be celebrating it just completely. But then there's this whole aspect of it where it's like, I do this and then he buys me a car. Why? You were so close to making like a true feminist anthem. Really, like so close. And maybe it still is, obviously it still is, because it's still pushing forward the female sexuality. But when it goes to that aspect, all of a sudden, all that sexuality is a transactional question. It's just about what can I do with my body to get something that I want. It no longer becomes about female pleasure, it becomes about exploiting male pleasure. So, exploiting male pleasure is its own thing, and that's fine in its own way. But you can't be a song about female pleasure that is also about the female pleasure only being used to elicit goods and services from male pleasure. Right? I'm sure this sounds really condescending and pretentious. Please downvote this and put in the comments why I'm a jerk, if I'm a jerk about this. Like, I'm serious, because I'm getting a little bell in the back of my head saying, Skye, you might regret saying it this way. But I hope the point is coming through, despite the fact that I might be coming across as pretentious. And so in this song, this is the only time really where she does that. And later, I'm going to skip ahead a song, Yum Yum, it's kind of a gross sex song, and it's, it's got orgasmic ad libs and everything. But it's not about any man's pleasure. It's not about like getting things. It's just a gross sex song by a female rapper. And that's it. And I think like Yum Yum, it also has like a very small detail in it that's actual true eroticism, which is interesting. But like the difference between these to me is great. Where just a song about sexuality, okay, I'm repeating myself now. We'll see what happens in the comments. If anyone even watches this video. Again, the Drillorama may be my problem with it. With much of this album is that nothing quite feels like a full song. Maybe the first one does, the Countdown does, but the rest, they all feel like half songs, but they're really good as they are. Actually, my favorite line from her on the album is on Drillorama, where she says, "I'm like them, but the opposite," which is just great. Like that's a great way to diss people. I'm like them, but the opposite. Next track, Simply Done, which is a throwback beat done by DJ Premier again. Has like I think a Queen Latifah sample in there that's scratched up, and her rapping actually works really well with the DJ Premier style. I think better than Conway's did last week. And I think she outshines Benny the Butcher. And Benny the Butcher is a great rapper, but I think actually she's a little bit more engaging, a little bit more entertaining. This is, I would say, the better of the two songs of Benny the Butcher. Then we have Yum Yum, that gross song. I do like her whispering style there too. Like she has different modes, kind of aggressive, laid back, and this she's kind of whispering. Then the track Palm Angels is about like a breakup. This album doesn't quite pass the Bechdel test at times. This is all about like her new boyfriend being better than her old boyfriend. But this feels like it's true to life. This feels like this is actually how she feels. This doesn't feel like it's some trope that she's just doing and, okay, rappers rap about this, so I'm going to rap about this. This actually feels closer towards an actual autobiographical note. So I like this. And then it ends with another funny scene from a movie, Poetic Justice by John Singleton. The scene with Janet Jackson saying, "Do you want to smell my punani?" to Tupac. Lots of great integrations of pop culture, as always, with Griselda. There was actually also one wrestling thing that had to do with Macho Man Randy Savage. I don't know. That was after the Conway track, obviously, because Kanye needs his wrestling. Then the track Ginger Rothstein, which is a great callback to Sharon Stone's character from Casino. And that actually made me rethink a lot of my thoughts about this, my condescending and pretentious thoughts, apparently, about sort of women using men's pleasure to gain power, because Ginger Rothstein is an amazing character, very well done, a great study in a sort of failed woman and ambition, and I think her casting herself as that is kind of like the Liz Taylor thing. It's like Ginger Rothstein and Liz Taylor are both figures which sort of, Ginger Rothstein, again, the character from Casino, played by Sharon Stone, like they both frustrate our desire to just have the strong woman narrative. That like, this is what a strong woman looks like, and this is what she does. Both of them don't quite fit that narrative while also being very strong, which is what most female rappers do. They're very strong without fitting the narrative of what dudes like me don't agree with. Well, that's challenging me. Okay, good. Anyways, a fully arpeggiated piano. This is also maybe a little bit too busy, but the beat's cool because it has a little bit of like guitar at the end. I love the reference. I would say that at times the beats do get a little bit too busy with Griselda, and we hear that here. The last track is Manny Moves Freestyle, kind of a soft jazzy beat, which is nice. One of the other videos that I saw was her doing a freestyle on the radio, where they told that she was representing upstate New York. We are not in upstate New York. We are in Western New York. It's a different region entirely. Anyways, and actually watching her do actual freestyle, she's very good at freestyling, and this track really shows off her rhyming acumen. So there you go. There's my review of Armani Caesar, filled with musings and self-doubt and invitations to insult me and put me down. But it's cool. I want to have a dialogue here, and I just want to celebrate what Griselda is doing and the fact that this is a very solid, extremely listenable, totally worthy, and at times transcendently beautiful EP from Armani Caesar. Okay, well, I am going to go work on breakfast for the kids. There's the camera.